You know, it's kind of wild to think that a single spice could trigger centuries of global violence, empire building, and massive ecological change. But the real story here isn't just about the spice itself. It's about the hidden system that was built to control it. And that system, well, it connects all the way from colonial history right to the planetary crises we're facing today.
So, the foundation for this whole explainer comes from Amitav Ghosh's incredible book, The Nutmeg's Curse: Parables for a Planet in Crisis. We're really just exploring the world-shaping system that he reveals.
So you have to ask, how on earth did this all happen? And the important question isn't really, why was nutmeg so valuable? That's just supply and demand. The real mystery, the thing we're going to unpack, is why the system built to get that nutmeg was so incredibly destructive.
To really get this, we have to go back, way back, to a very specific place where this whole global drama kicked off.
Okay, I want you to picture it. The year is 1621. We're on the Banda Islands. Now, this is a tiny little cluster of volcanic islands in the Indian Ocean. And here's the kicker. At that time, it was the only place on the entire planet where nutmeg grew. It was literally ground zero for a global commodity chain, way before we even had a term for that.
So who shows up on their shores? The Dutch East India Company, or the VOC. And you have to understand, this was not your average trading company. The VOC was a beast. It was a titan of early capitalism, a corporation so powerful it had its own warships, its own army of soldiers, and one brutally simple goal: control the entire spice trade no matter what it took.
And the cost was just immense. The VOC wasn't interested in trading with the Bandanese people. Nope, they wanted total, absolute control. Their solution was as brutal as it was direct: depopulate the islands. Eliminate the very people who had cultivated these nutmeg forests for centuries and just take over production completely. This single act of violence became the foundation for everything that came after.
Okay, let's hit pause and zoom out for a second, because you're probably wondering, how could anyone see this horrifying violence as a logical business strategy? To get that, we have to get inside the core idea, the mindset that was driving all of this.
This right here is the perfect illustration of that core idea, the warehouse mindset. See, on one side, you have a living forest. It's an interconnected, complex, messy system. But when you look at it through the lens of this new global system, it's not a forest anymore. It's an inventory in a warehouse. And in a warehouse, complexity is a problem. Diversity is inefficient. The whole goal is just to simplify it for one single purpose: extraction.
And this is the really crucial point. This worldview completely strips nature of its life, of its agency. A forest stops being a living partner and just becomes inventory. Trees aren't living things, they're just production units. The entire world becomes this collection of inert, dead stuff, just waiting for us to come along and turn it into profit.
And this warehouse mindset, it created its own really twisted logic, a logic that when you look at it closely, almost seems designed to destroy itself. So get this. Here's the paradox. The VOC actually did it. They got their total monopoly. They had a steady, predictable supply of nutmeg flowing out. But in the world of commodities, predictability and abundance are the enemies of high prices. Their own efficiency, their own success was starting to tank their profits.
And this just lays out the absolutely bizarre logic that followed. Okay, so the goal is profit. The problem is there's too much nutmeg. So what's the only solution from within that framework? You have to create scarcity on purpose. And how did they do it? Through a policy they called extirpation. They literally sent out expeditions to hunt down and destroy every single nutmeg tree on any neighboring islands, just to make sure their little warehouse in the Bandas was the only one left. Just let that sink in for a second. This system, supposedly built on pure rationality, led to an impulse to destroy the very source of its own wealth. Ghosh gives this a name: omnicide. It's this desire to destroy everything that isn't under your complete and total control. It's an absolutely chilling consequence of that warehouse mindset.
And this is where the story just explodes. It goes from this one tiny group of islands to a global phenomenon. Because this logic, it didn't just die out with the VOC. It became a blueprint.
The exact same logic, kicking communities off their land, simplifying a diverse ecosystem down to a plantation, and managing it for maximum output, it just got applied over and over and over again. To sugar in the Caribbean, to cotton in the American South, to rubber, to timber. It was a blueprint for extraction that spread across the entire planet.
And eventually, this blueprint was applied to the ultimate warehouse resource, fossil fuels. All that ancient organic matter treated like just another inert item in the inventory, ready to be extracted and burned, fueling an industrial system built on the very same logic that started centuries ago with nutmeg.
So the really crucial point here is this. What we've inherited isn't just an economic system. It's an entire way of seeing the world. A crisis in perception.
Because when you relentlessly apply that warehouse mindset to everything, you don't just extract materials from the earth, you extract meaning. The world becomes muted, disenchanted. It's stripped of all the stories and relationships that once made it feel alive.
And this example just perfectly illustrates those two competing worldviews. In Sanskrit, the name for nutmeg is Jayafal, which means fragrant fruit. It's a character in songs and stories. But in the Linnaean system, the scientific classification, it becomes Meristica fragrans haut. It's just an object, an inert resource, categorized and ready to be slotted into a global inventory. One name carries an entire world of meaning, the other one just silences it.
And this is the core insight. Our biggest crises, climate change, deforestation, the loss of species, they can seem like a bunch of separate problems. But they're not. They are all linked symptoms of the exact same underlying logic. It's the warehouse mindset, just scaled up to a planetary level.
As the writer Naomi Klein put it, you really can't understand our ecological crisis today without reckoning with this deep history of empire and violence. It's all part of the same world-devouring logic.
So we'll end with this thought. The story of this one small spice pulls back the curtain on a system that has been shaping our world for 400 years. The real question is, now that we can see the blueprint, what happens when we start recognizing its patterns all around us, in our food, our energy, and even in the very way we think?